We are talking about one of the most powerful and enigmatic men in Hollywood. Tom Cruise. For decades, he has redefined action films, broken box office records, and become the very definition of absolute control, a global brand protected by steel. But there is one area of his life that he cannot control or explain with normal logic: his marital history. We are not talking about typical romantic failures. We are talking about an eerily repetitive mathematical pattern. A coincidence that, if you believe in fate, was written by an external force. Consider Tom Cruise's 3 wives, the seasoned actress Mimi Rogers, the Oscar-winning superstar Nicole Kidman, and the fresh-faced ingenue Katie Holmes. 3 women, 3 closely watched marriages, and 3 divorces that concluded when each of them hit the exact same age milestone, 33 years old. Mimi Rogers, divorced at 33. Nicole Kidman, divorced at 33. Katie Holmes, divorced at 33. This is not a random pattern. This is a number, a preset endpoint. This level of coincidence is mathematically improbable in a normal context. Yet, when you factor in the biggest and most controversial variable in Tom Cruise's life, the Church of Scientology, suddenly, the coincidence becomes a clue. It transforms a tragic love story into an investigation of high-level religious manipulation. 33 is not just a number. In various esoteric systems, it is a master number. And in the history of Scientology, it is linked to core tenets and geographical origins. Could Tom Cruise, the most devout and influential figure within the church, be bound by an unspoken rule, a secret clause in his spiritual contract, dictating that if his wife fails to reach a certain operating thetan status before the age of 33, she must be cut off? This is the terrifying pattern we must unmask. Tonight, we expose the 3 women who fell victim to a numerical mandate and the darker agenda of the organization that Tom Cruise serves above all else. Welcome to Starlight Remains. The story of the number 33 and Tom Cruise's love life begins not with the glossy magazine covers, but in the late 1980s. In the quiet, formative days of his devotion to Scientology. The subject of our first investigation is Mimi Rogers, an actress known for her sharp intelligence and, crucially, her deep ties to the Church of Scientology, long before Tom Cruise became the face of it. Mimi Rogers was, in essence, the architect of his spiritual future, and, ultimately, the first casualty of the pattern she helped create. When Cruise met Rogers, he was a rising star, but still a spiritual neophyte. Rogers wasn't just his wife. She was his handler, his guide into the complex, often secretive world of L. Ron Hubbard's philosophy. Mimi Rogers was instrumental in introducing him to the core auditing processes and the fundamental belief system that would come to overshadow his entire existence. For the church, this was a massive coup. Securing one of Hollywood's most bankable young stars was an unprecedented opportunity for public relations and recruitment. Rogers held the keys to the kingdom for Cruise, and initially, their marriage seemed founded on this shared, intense commitment to enlightenment. They married in 1987. At the time, Rogers was 31 and Cruise was 24. They presented a unified front, publicly discussing their commitment to their faith, even if the details of that faith remained opaque to the general public. But the unique structure of Scientology, which emphasizes relentless progress up the operating thetan OT levels, places an enormous amount of pressure on its adherents. This isn't a faith where you simply attend services. It demands constant, aggressive self-improvement and spiritual clearance. And this is where the seeds of their marital destruction were sown. The internal dynamic shifted quickly. Tom Cruise, fueled by his characteristic intensity and dedication, began to ascend the OT levels at an astonishing pace. He wasn't just participating, he was excelling. Mimi Rogers, while already an established Scientologist, reportedly failed to keep up with her increasingly famous and intensely driven husband. In the Scientology hierarchy, progress is everything. When one partner progresses dramatically while the other stagnates, it creates an untenable spiritual imbalance. Former high-ranking Scientologists have long alleged that the church views any partner who is not actively supporting the members' spiritual progress or, worse, who is holding them back as a suppressing person. SP, or, at the very least, a potential trouble source, PTS. While Mimi Rogers was certainly not an enemy of the church, her inability to match Tom Cruise's ascent meant she was quickly becoming a spiritual liability to the organization's most valuable asset. The message, subtly or overtly, began to filter down from the highest echelons. Mimi was impeding Tom's destiny. This narrative culminated in 1990. Tom Cruise filed for divorce from Mimi Rogers. The relationship, which began with spiritual mentorship, ended with a cold, corporate-like severance. Mimi Rogers, the woman who brought him into the faith, was summarily discarded. And what was her age at the time? The divorce was finalized 33 years old. The official line was the usual Hollywood boilerplate irreconcilable differences. But the whispers behind the scenes, fueled by the accounts of former insiders, pointed directly to the church. They theorized that Rogers, having served her purpose by introducing Cruise to the faith, had become expendable once her own spiritual commitment could no longer keep pace with his. The timing, precisely at age 33, felt like more than bad luck. It felt like a deliberate, systematic weeding out process. The pattern of the first marriage established two critical precedents. First, that Tom Cruise's devotion to Scientology would always supersede his marital vows, and second, the chilling introduction of the age 33 marker. It was a coincidence so precise that, in hindsight, it stands as a terrifying premonition of the next two marriages that would follow. When Mimi Rogers walked away from the marriage, she became the first woman to be pushed off the life raft when she reached the church's invisible finish line. The blueprint had been set, and the next woman to fall into Tom Cruise's orbit would be much, much bigger. This initial dissolution proved that for Tom Cruise, personal loyalty meant nothing when it conflicted with the church's demands for spiritual purity and relentless advancement. The organization's grip was absolute, and the wife who introduced him to it became the first sacrifice on the altar of his rising OT status. If Mimi Rogers was the unintentional architect of the age 33 pattern, Nicole Kidman was the unwitting challenge to the church's authority. Their relationship, beginning immediately after the divorce from Rogers, became one of Hollywood's most iconic and, eventually, one of Scientology's most scrutinized control battles. Nicole Kidman was not just an actress, she was a powerful, independent spirit. And crucially, she was raised Catholic, possessing an inherent skepticism toward the intense demands of Scientology. Cruise met Kidman on the set of Days of Thunder in 1989, and they were married shortly after the divorce from Rogers was finalized. This was a partnership of equals in terms of fame, creating a power couple dynamic that was unprecedented. Nicole Kidman, with her towering stature and quiet, intellectual intensity, represented a clear threat to the church. Unlike Mimi Rogers, who brought Cruise into the faith, Kidman was a distinct outsider, and she made no secret of her discomfort with the organization that consumed her husband's life. For over a decade, their marriage was a fascinating study. In contrast, the electric, highly charged energy of Cruise next to Kidman's calm, almost ethereal presence. They adopted two children, Isabella and Connor, and their professional collaboration, most notably in Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, solidified their status as Hollywood royalty. But behind the scenes, the pressure from Scientology was relentless. systematic, and, according to multiple insider accounts, deeply damaging. High-level defectors from the church, including figures like Marty Rathbun, have detailed how Scientology actively sought to disconnect Kidman from her family and friends who were seen as potential suppressive influences. Specifically, Kidman's father, a respected clinical psychologist in Australia, was viewed with deep suspicion by the church. Psychology, particularly psychiatry, is considered an enemy of Scientology, and the organization allegedly sought to isolate Kidman from her father's influence, fearing he would encourage her to leave the faith and, by extension, Tom Cruise. The tension escalated throughout the 1990s, while Cruise was reportedly audited for 5 hours a day and constantly climbing the OT levels. Kidman, who occasionally participated in introductory auditing sessions, never fully committed. She simply refused to be fully absorbed. She did not reach the higher, more demanding OT levels required for a spouse of such a prominent Scientologist. She remained a spiritual anomaly in his life, a soft spot the church could not tolerate. This failure to achieve spiritual parity with her husband became the core conflict. As the years passed, Nicole Kidman inadvertently became a symbol of resistance for the church's critics. If Tom Cruise was the figurehead of Scientology, Kidman was the silent, reluctant partner who stood just outside the circle. According to accounts, the church began actively working to undermine the marriage, attempting to turn the couple's adopted children against Kidman through auditing and indoctrination processes designed to create emotional distance from the suppressive parent. This manipulative strategy is allegedly a standard tactic to enforce disconnection. In February 2001, the inevitable occurred. Tom Cruise blindsided Nicole Kidman by filing for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The end came swiftly and brutally. And once again, the terrifying numerical pattern asserted itself. Nicole Kidman was 33 years old when the divorce was finalized. The public narrative focused on career conflicts and distance, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Mimi Rogers, 33. Nicole Kidman, 33. Two powerful women. Jettisoned at the precise moment they hit the master teacher's age. This wasn't merely coincidence anymore. It was beginning to look like a ritual. Kidman's experience demonstrated that even the strength of a high-profile, decade-long marriage, 2 children, and mutual career success could not withstand the silent, ruthless dictates of Tom Cruise's faith once the clock hit 33 and the wife had failed to comply with the organization's spiritual mandates. Kidman's departure was widely seen as a silent escape from an increasingly restrictive and intrusive environment, proving that the church's ultimate goal was total spiritual control over their star asset, regardless of the emotional cost. By the time Nicole Kidman's marriage ended, at age 33, the pattern was impossible to dismiss as mere coincidence. It demanded a deeper investigation into the one consistent and controlling element in Tom Cruise's life, Scientology. If the age 33 was a deliberate endpoint, we must ask why. What is the esoteric significance of this number within the framework of Scientology, or even in the broader world of spiritual and secret societies? The number 33 holds profound significance across various mystical and historical traditions, often referred to as a master number in numerology. In this context, it is known as the master teacher, symbolizing altruism, compassion, and the highest spiritual elevation. These qualities align strikingly well with the stated goals of Scientology to clear the planet and elevate individuals to their full potential as spiritual beings. But the connection goes beyond general numerology. It penetrates the very geography and founding myths of the Church of Scientology itself. L. Ron Hubbard, the founder, based the Hubbard Association of Scientologists in Phoenix, Arizona, a city that sits geographically near the 33rd parallel north. For those who seek meaning in geometry and latitude, the 33rd parallel is a line of fascination, running through historical and mythologically charged locations around the globe. To the deeply spiritual or esoteric, basing the foundation of a new religion near this specific geographic marker would suggest intentional symbolism, perhaps the most compelling and terrifying. Theory centers around the internal hierarchy of the Church. The Scientology test theory. Within Scientology, the ultimate spiritual goal is to progress up the bridge to total freedom. A long, arduous, and extremely expensive path leading to the status of an operating Thetan OT. High-ranking members have alleged that there exists an unwritten yet strictly enforced mandate regarding the spouses of top figures like Tom Cruise. This mandate, often cited in whistleblower accounts, suggests that a partner must either show substantial progress, reaching a specific OT level, such as OT2 or OT3, or demonstrate an unwavering commitment to the Church by a certain deadline. The theory is that the age of 33 serves as this internal spiritual deadline, marking the point where the spouse's suitability as a companion for an indispensable asset like Tom Cruise is formally assessed. If the spouse, be it Mimi, Nicole, or Katie, fails to achieve the necessary spiritual clearance by 33, they are deemed a spiritual bottleneck. They are seen as impeding the devout partner's progress and, by extension, hindering the Church's mission. The Church's strategy, in this chilling context, is not about love or conventional marriage. It is a clinical assessment of spiritual utility. The elimination of the partner is then seen as a necessary cleansing, ensuring the most valuable adherent, Tom Cruise, remains unencumbered on his path to total freedom. This theory is dramatically reinforced by the difference in how Cruise dealt with his wives versus other non-Scientologist friends. While his professional relationships are often strained by his faith, his marriages followed a specific, rigid, temporal pattern. The number 33, therefore, transcends a simple coincidence. It acts as a spiritual alarm clock for the Church, signaling that a non-cleared entity must be removed from the inner sanctum. The fact that Tom Cruise, as the unofficial de facto second-in-command to David Miscavige, would strictly adhere to such an esoteric or numerical mandate is a testament to his absolute devotion. He is not just a member. He is the public face, the financial engine, and the most crucial celebrity endorsement the Church possesses. His life, including his choice of partner, is not his own. It is subordinated to the strategic demands of the organization. The age 33, whether interpreted through numerology as the master teacher, or through internal Church doctrine as the spiritual deadline, provides the dark answer to the riddle of his 3 broken marriages. It demonstrates that the rules governing Tom Cruise's personal life are far stranger and far more terrifying than the conventional public scrutiny would ever suggest. The 3rd chapter of the Tom Cruise marriage saga involves Katie Holmes, and it is the most revealing, most documented, and perhaps the most frightening example of the age 33 pattern in action. The relationship began in 2005 with a whirlwind public courtship, complete with the infamous couch-jumping incident on the Oprah Winfrey Show, a moment of televised hysteria that signaled Tom Cruise's absolute devotion, not just to Katie, but to making his love life a spectacle of his boundless enthusiasm for life. And by extension, his faith. Katie Holmes, significantly younger than Cruise and possessing a much softer, quieter public persona than either Mimi Rogers or Nicole Kidman, initially seemed compliant, even malleable. She quickly converted to Scientology, and after the birth of their daughter, Suri, in 2006, the couple married in a highly publicized, lavish Italian ceremony. For the Church, this was a moment of triumph, They had secured a young, high-profile wife who appeared willing to fully embrace the lifestyle. The public narrative was a fairy tale. The reality, according to later reports, was a carefully orchestrated campaign of control and isolation. As with Nicole Kidman, the central conflict was the church's overwhelming intrusion into their family life, particularly concerning the upbringing of their child. Suri, Tom Cruise, and the church intended for Suri to be fully integrated into the practices of Scientology from infancy. This included auditing procedures and adherence to the church's rigid educational philosophies. For Katie Holmes, a quiet woman who grew up in a devout Catholic family, this was the line that could not be crossed. The idea of her daughter being fully absorbed into an organization that demanded such strict, isolating obedience became her breaking point. The narrative of Katie Holmes's escape is less a divorce story and more a covert operation. Unlike Cruise's previous divorces, which were managed through his legal team, Katie Holmes executed her departure in near total secrecy. She reportedly used disposable cell phones and employed a team of lawyers in New York. Far from the influence of Cruise's Hollywood and Scientology-connected entourage, the timing was critical, and the element of surprise was her most potent weapon. The stakes were clear. Her primary motivation was reportedly to gain sole legal custody of Suri and remove her daughter permanently from the reach of the church's rigorous indoctrination. She filed for divorce in June 2012, catching Tom Cruise completely off guard while he was away filming. The speed and determination of her actions suggested a deep fear and a calculated strategy to preempt any retaliatory moves by Scientology, which has a documented history of aggressive tactics against perceived enemies. And then, the chilling pattern emerged for the third time. When Katie Holmes filed for divorce, she was 33 years old. This third occurrence shattered any remaining doubt that the age was a mere random event. It transformed the number 33 from a coincidence into a definitive timestamp, a deadline that all three of Tom Cruise's wives failed to meet, or perhaps deliberately refused to meet. For Katie Holmes, reaching 33 and filing for divorce suggested a dramatic final realization she had run out of time to passively resist the church's demands. Her move was a powerful statement that transcended celebrity gossip. It exposed the immense personal cost of being married to a high-ranking Scientologist. The fact that Holmes, a relatively new convert, had to resort to such extreme measures filing in a new jurisdiction, using covert communication, underscored the prevailing belief that leaving Tom Cruise was synonymous with escaping the Church of Scientology itself. Her success in securing the divorce quickly, and more importantly, in obtaining sole custody with strict provisions regarding Suri's exposure to Scientology, was interpreted by many as a victory over the organization's immense power. The Katie Holmes divorce at age 33 cemented the narrative that Tom Cruise's marriages were not ending due to typical celebrity pressures, but due to a structural, spiritual limitation imposed by his faith. The pattern was now undeniable: 3 wives, 3 departures, 1 common age, and 1 underlying organization pulling the strings. It was the moment the public stopped seeing this as unfortunate romantic history and started seeing it as a terrifying, recurring cycle of control. The divorce papers are signed, the legal battles are settled. But the most enduring element of the age 33 pattern is the chilling aftermath. The silence. Mimi Rogers, Nicole Kidman, and Katie Holmes, 3 women who shared one of the most famous men on the planet, all walked away with a profound, unspoken vow of silence regarding the specifics of their marriages and the organization that governed them. This silence is not merely graceful discretion. It is widely perceived as a non-negotiable condition of their freedom. Mimi Rogers was the first to disappear from the public conversation about Tom Cruise. having been the initial Scientologist wife. She likely understood the system and the consequences of violating the code of silence imposed on those who leave the inner circle. She rarely, if ever, speaks directly about her time with Cruz, focusing instead on her acting career. Her low profile suggested an immediate recognition of the invisible boundaries set by the church. The silence of Nicole Kidman is arguably the most telling. Despite her global fame and repeated media opportunities, she maintains a rigid, almost impenetrable boundary when discussing Tom Cruise or Scientology. In the rare instances she is prompted, she speaks only in vague, careful generalities, emphasizing her love for her current life and her children. Isabella and Connor. This caution is frequently interpreted as a tacit acknowledgement of the Church's reach and influence. High-ranking defectors have long alleged that those who leave the orbit of a prominent Scientologist must sign robust, legally enforced, non-disclosure agreements. But even without explicit documents, the fear of retribution from an organization known for its aggressive fair-game tactics can be enough to enforce perpetual quiet. Kidman's focus on her career and her subsequent marriage to Keith Urban has been a masterclass in controlled public narrative, keeping her personal freedom secured by her absolute discretion. Then there is Katie Holmes. Her escape was the most dramatic, yet her subsequent silence has been the most complete. While her actions spoke volumes, the covert planning, the filing for divorce far from Los Angeles, the immediate demand for sole custody. Her words since the divorce in 2012 have been virtually non-existent regarding the Church. Her goal was clear: to protect Suri. The continued lack of communication between Tom Cruise and his daughter Suri is one of the most devastating public consequences of his loyalty to Scientology. And Katie Holmes' unwavering commitment to keeping their daughter away from the faith remains the loudest statement she can make. This collective silence paints a chilling picture: the three wives, regardless of their celebrity power or legal standing, all appear to operate under the same unspoken threat. They are free, but their freedom is conditional upon their perpetual discretion. The only way the pattern could be broken is if Tom Cruise were to marry a fourth time and the marriage lasted past the age of 33, or if the wife was already over 33 at the time of marriage. In the past few years, the public has watched intently, searching for the crack in the age 33 armor. In late 2024, reports surfaced that Cruise was dating Russian socialite Elsina Khairova, who was in her mid-30s, already past the symbolic deadline. More recently, in 2025, persistent rumors linked him to actress Ana de Armas, who is also well past the age of 33. The potential significance of dating women already over 33 is profound. It suggests two possibilities: either the Church has relaxed its demands on its star asset, or, more darkly, that the organization is now only sanctioning relationships with women who are no longer eligible for the spiritual test. If the deadline for achieving the required OT level is third dating women who are already 36 or 37, bypasses the pressure point entirely. It removes the risk of another public pattern enforcing divorce that could draw negative attention to the Church's internal mandates. Ultimately, the silence of the three former wives serves as the most powerful evidence that their separation was not a romantic failure, but a required compliance. Their shared age of 33 at the point of divorce is the undeniable timestamp of an organized extraction, and their subsequent silence is the ultimate confirmation of the terrifying power wielded by the organization that sits at the center of Tom Cruise's universe. We have dissected the evidence, traced the timeline, and analyzed the cryptic numerology. The conclusion is inescapable. The repetitive dissolution of Tom Cruise's marriages at the specific age of 33 transcends the realm of mere chance and enters the domain of systematic organizational control. It is a chilling pattern that establishes the undeniable hierarchy of Tom Cruise's life, Scientology first, and his spouse, a distant second. This pattern is the terrifying truth we set out to unmask. Mimi Rogers was the initial spiritual guide who became spiritually redundant. Nicole Kidman was the powerful outsider who refused to comply and was neutralized. Katie Holmes was the desperate mother who launched a covert operation to rescue her child before the deadline expired. 3 women, all highly intelligent, successful, and beautiful, were all ultimately deemed incompatible with the demanding, escalating spiritual path of their husband when the clock struck 33. The number 33, whether intentionally chosen for its esoteric significance as the master teacher or simply functioning as an organizational compliance deadline, serves as the final, absolute proof. It demonstrates that the most private part of the biggest movie star's life is governed not by emotion, but by the cold, calculated dictates of his faith. His love life is a function of his commitment to the bridge to total freedom. Tom Cruise remains the perfect figurehead for the Church of Scientology, a testament to absolute loyalty. He sacrificed his wives and his relationship with his daughter Suri to maintain his standing. The question is not if he will marry again, but how the Church will adapt its pattern. Perhaps only sanctioning partners who are already past the age of risk. The silence of his former wives is their ongoing testament to the power of the organization they escaped. We've laid out the facts. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you believe this is simply Hollywood's strangest coincidence? Or is the age 33 a definitive rulebook for the most powerful Scientologist in the world? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the dark corners of celebrity life compelling, hit the like button and subscribe to Starlight Remains for more true stories about the terrifying patterns behind the stars.